Welcome to the Sex Help for Smart People podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Jurgens, self-liberated former science professor, sexologist, and dual certified master intimacy coach. I specialize in helping you transform your relationships to get the kinds of sex, intimacy, and connection you crave using research-backed practice and play. So let's get at it. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 54. We are going to talk today about asking for what you want, and especially some myths around that get in our way, that we've sort of acquired from the societies that we live in, and how relationships actually work. Some things to kind of rewire our brains to make it easier for you to ask for what you want in your relationships. And I just did a workshop on this the other day in Asheville, and it was so lovely. It was so connecting. For those of you who are out there listening to this, who came to that workshop, you know who you are, and I adore you, and thank you so much for being there and making such a really lovely hour and a half for me. So one of the things we talked about last week was doing things scared. In that interview with Kema, where she was talking about, doing it scared and holding your own hand through things. And that's something we also have to do when we are asking for what we want. And I think we not only have to do it scared a lot of times, but we may also have to do it a little hurt or a little heartbroken. Sometimes we're asking for what we want because we haven't been getting it. Sometimes there's grief, right? We can move forward even with negative emotions. It's not that helpful to ask for what we want when we're mad, even though we might really need something, right? But it's actually much more helpful, and people will be much more receptive if we wait until we've calmed down a little bit. So we're going to talk about that today too. Okay, so before we dive in, I just want to pause and make a special invitation for you, and especially if you are someone who is in a relationship where there's some sort of desire or libido mismatch. So I am doing a special 2-night frequently asked questions. It's going to be like a clarity hour in fact, that's what I'm calling it, clarity hour for libido mismatch couples. And you can come by yourself, you can come with your partner, you can come with your best friend. But what we are going to do is we are going to answer common questions, because this is such a common challenge for people, and it creates so much resentment in relationships, so much sense of powerlessness and conflict and blame. So many people feel blamed and like it's all their fault. And it is, I promise you, one of the most important things that we are going to cover is that it is not ever one person's problem, and it is not ever anybody's fault. And there are actually ways out of that spiral of resentment and the feelings of powerlessness and blame. There's ways to reconcile low libido and high libido relationships. So libido mismatch relationships. There are ways to reconcile that. There are also ways to increase desire, and there are ways to manage somebody else's really high levels of desire without putting pressure on anybody to do stuff they don't want to do, and without trying to be somebody who you're not. Okay, so I have got you, if this is you, if you are in one of these couples and you are struggling, February 18th and 19th, and there are all kinds of options to enable you to be anonymous. So if it feels sensitive to you to be in a group talking about this, do not worry. You do not have to be exposed at all. You're just going to hear me or see me. So on day one, on the 18th, it's a Zoom call. You can keep your video off. And I'm even going to walk people through how to change your screen name if you want to just have your first name on there, if you want the name of your dog, whatever. We're going to make sure that you feel okay talking about this. I know it's a sensitive subject. The second night, if you feel even more like you want to be anonymous, the 19th is just going to be a phone call. It's going to be a call-in conference call. So on the 18th, you'll be able to see me. On the 19th, we're just going to be on the phone. We're going to do the same thing. It's going to be like Ask the Expert. And I'm also going to go through some frequently asked questions about libido mismatch. So whatever your questions are, we're going to have some time to answer those. And if you don't want to ask a question, you just want to hear the kind of really common questions people ask, that is also going to happen. So do not miss this. And the way that you join, so if this is you, I want you to listen to the instructions and then pause this podcast and actually go sign up now. Okay? Do not wait. Don't stop to collect $200. Pull over, sign up, get it done, and make sure that you are caring for yourself by giving yourself this opportunity to walk away from an easy hour with just more clarity, more information, and feeling way better about your situation. Okay. So if this is you, what you're going to do is you're going to pause the podcast. You're going to go to the notes wherever you're getting this podcast. Just open that app, go to the show notes for this show, and there's a link to both of those event days. You can pick whether you want to do it by Zoom or phone. You can come to both. It's totally free. It's 100% free. There's no obligation. There's no pressure. You just go, you learn some stuff. You feel better. Yay. So pause the podcast, go to the show notes, click on the event, register, you're done. Yay. Good job. Okay, now back to what we're talking about today. We're talking about asking for what you want. And when we're in relationships, we kind of need to do this. And, I've had to do this. I had to do this yesterday. And I actually have had to do it scared, and I've had to do it heartbroken, and I've had to do it in all kinds of, I've had to do it mad and figure out how to calm myself down first. And the reason that it doesn't work to just do it mad is because, we're told, this is one of the myths, we're told that our words are what matter and that people, quote unquote, should focus on content even if we're mad. That's kind of the myth, right? That we internalize, that it's the words that matter. But the reality is that is absolutely not true. If we are upset, people can tell, even if we're trying to hide it, and they will respond to our frustration or our anger with defensiveness and not with open ears. They will only take in that we are upset or mad at them. They will not be taking in what we are actually saying. And we frequently, including me, forget this in relationships. But the research shows that roughly 87% of human communication is not about the content of your words. That's only about 13%. And that content is only actually even heard or available to be processed by the other person's higher brain, their prefrontal cortex that does all that executive function. That's where we process the meaning of somebody's words. That part is not online when somebody is feeling scared of losing a connection, when they are feeling defensive, when they are feeling threatened, or when they are feeling blamed. Then they're going to be fully in their emotional brain. They're going to be in their body's reactions, and they're not going to hear the words that are coming out of your face. So that's myth number one. The truth is that people only take in our words if we are calm. We can be calm and hurt. We can be calm and sad. We can be calm and acknowledging that we've been angry and frustrated. We just can't be in the middle of being super activated and expect somebody to hear us well. Okay, another myth that kind of goes along with this one. Being rational creates receptivity in other people. I used to really believe this. If I listed out all of my rational arguments, of course the other person's going to believe me, right? So this is after we've gotten to the point where maybe we are in our own heads at least calm enough that we think we're being rational, and we want to go through all the arguments. Here's all the facts as we see them, right? But what actually works for people, so that's how we're told it works. It's not true. What actually works in human relationships is vulnerability and honesty. And vulnerability and honesty specifically around how we feel. So instead of trying to make a quote unquote rational argument that, I, for example, deserve more hugs from my partner, or I need more physical affection. So I want to make a rational argument about how, what I would do is trot out everyone needs physical affection, right? I would trot out sort of okay, all relationships should have this, right? I would give my laundry list of what I actually want, but instead of making it about me and being willing to be vulnerable about what I want, I would be saying, this is what a good relationship looks like, right? And I would be like listing my idea of what's all rational. But in reality, the way to actually be heard, if I want more physical affection, is to say how it feels to me when I don't get it and when I do get it. And to be really honest about like, I feel really disconnected when we don't touch on a daily basis, right? If we don't touch all day, I have a really hard time feeling connected to you, and I feel kind of left out in the cold. I feel kind of rejected, and I would really like to feel close to you, and it would feel really good to me if we could take some time to have some physical affection, right? So do you see how that is vulnerable? That is actually owning my own feelings and saying them honestly. That is much more likely to get heard. Okay, another myth about how we're told it works is that being quote unquote nice and doing what others want is good for relationships. And this often gets in our way when we're thinking about maybe asking for something that we want from our partner. Maybe we want more foreplay, right? But we're like, well, I just shouldn't pester my partner, right, for that. I shouldn't ask because I should just go along with what they want. That would be nice of me. But what is actually happening, so that's how we're told it works, being quote unquote nice, doing what other people want is good for relationships, which is totally wrong. What actually works is honesty again. And being honest creates trust and comfort way more than people-pleasing does. People-pleasing, doing what somebody else wants and not saying what we want, actually just creates resentment. There is no way to get around it. You can't get around resentment when you are a people-pleaser. So instead of being resentful and undermining your connection with that person, because when you don't feel that close to them, you're not going to act that close to them, and you are going to actually harm the relationship, recognize that it may be hard, but actually saying what you need is much kinder, and it gives the other person an opportunity to decide if they want to do it or not. It gives them a chance to know what you want. Okay. Another myth on how we're told relationships work is that no is the worst thing to hear, which is not true. I actually think untruths are the worst thing to hear. And that includes when we're just bullshitting someone, even like white lies. What actually works in relationships is saying no kindly when you mean no, and saying yes when you mean yes, but only when you mean yes. That is how we create trust and freedom. It means it's okay to ask for what we want, and it also means it's okay for someone to say no if they can't do that or they don't want to. And that creates so much freedom in a relationship and so much trust. So related to the no, right, is the idea, another myth is that we are told by this is sort of like the society at large, that we should avoid disappointment at all costs. And, disappointment is a human emotion. In our lives, we are going to run into every single human emotion, and we are made to deal with it. We are human beings. We are capable of having every human emotion, from absolute and utter despair and terror to the pinnacles of joy and pride and love, all kinds of things, right? Disappointment is just an emotion, and we can't protect people from it. We can't protect people from their human experience and their encountering emotions in the world. And that's okay. We don't have to. They are, we're talking about being in a relationship with adults. You don't have to protect them from disappointment. And to be honest, you don't even have to protect your kids from disappointment. They actually need it to learn how to deal with it. We all need to accept that disappointment is part of reality. And that means sometimes somebody's going to say no and we're going to be slightly disappointed or maybe really disappointed. And I can tell you, I had a conflict yesterday that was really disappointing. And I am still processing how disappointed I am. And it's okay. I'm okay. I'm bummed. And it's going to probably take me a little while to rebuild trust with this person. And you know what? That's okay. I know we can do it. I know I'm not quite ready for it right now. And That's life. That's reality, right? That's okay. So you don't they don't have to, they could have done things a little bit better. And I think they would like to have done things a little bit better, but they don't need to protect me from my experience of disappointment. And in fact, they just need to let me have it. And that's okay. So you don't have to protect someone from disappointment. All right. Another myth. We got 2 more today in talking about asking for what you want. And these all came from this workshop I just did the other day. And it's funny. We had a lot of fun with this. We actually just made it really silly, and we practiced asking for things and saying yes and saying no and asking for ridiculous things that of course nobody wants, right? And then asking for things that we definitely wanted, and just practicing with things. So one of the big myths is if it's hard to ask for what you want, you're a coward. And that is fucking wrong. It's just wrong. It's not true at all. And I think that's what we say to ourselves, oh, it should be easy. Why? Why should it be easy? In our personal relationships, the closer we are to someone, the more we care about what they think, the more we're worried about losing that connection. Of course, it makes sense that we're scared to ask for what we want. Of course. And especially if we haven't been doing it, then it's also unfamiliar. And we're not used to the person. We're not used to having a dialogue with the person based on whether they want to say yes or no. So we haven't learned that it's okay to ask. We haven't learned that it's okay for them to say no and for us to deal with our disappointment. We haven't learned that it's okay for them to say yes and for us to actually believe that they will say, that they mean yes, because we know darn well that they feel comfortable enough saying no to us. That's what lets us believe that the person means yes when they say yes, right? So if we're not used to doing all that stuff, of course it's going to feel fucking hard, right? It doesn't mean that you're a coward. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. And there's no should about it. It shouldn't be easy. Why should it be easy? It doesn't have to be easy for you to do it. And that's what Cayman and I were talking about last time about doing things when you're scared. Or I was talking about in the beginning of this podcast, doing things when you're hurt or doing things when there's negative emotion. It's still okay. So the reality is, you are not a coward if it's hard. It is hard for most people to ask for what they want. And the ones who can ask anyway have practiced a lot and let themselves practice with small things or silly things and let it be hard and let it be a little challenging and even say to the person, I'm really working on asking for what I want here. It is not easy. Could you give me a minute? I really want to ask you for something, but it's going to be hard for me to get this out. That is one of the best ways to take some pressure off yourself. Let it be challenging. Let the other person in on the fact that it's challenging for you. Then you're both going to give yourself a little more grace. And practice with small stuff. That's what I do in my practice with my clients. And you can do this, a lot of it, on your own. If you need help, reach out and I'll help you. But you can also practice on your own with even little things, right? You go to the coffee shop and they only have half and half out and you actually wanted oat milk or whatever, or they only have oat milk out and you wanted coconut milk, ask. Instead of just saying, oh, I can't ask for what I want, just ask. And and then if they say they don't have that, notice that you're a little disappointed. See how that feels in your body. Also notice it's not the end of the world and move on, right? Doing those little bits makes it easier when you actually need to ask for something big. Hey, I need a lot more kissing. I need a lot more kissing. Or, hey, I need us to explore trying to find some of my erogenous zones because, to be honest, I don't know where they are. And I would really like us to spend a little more time playing with them because I'm not ready to progress in our sexy times as fast as you seem to want to escalate. Those are big conversations, right? Or even asking for a conversation can be really hard. Hey, I want to talk about the fact that I think we have kind of mismatched libidos and we've been kind of missing each other on this and we might have a little resentment going on in our relationship. Asking for that conversation is a big ask for a lot of people. That's okay. You can do it. And practicing with little things can help you get there. Ask a friend to practice asking for random shit with you. It's actually really fun. What we did in the workshop the other day is we wrote down something that we're definitely a no to right now. I'm a no to being, having somebody else like pick my nose or like dump me in a vat of hot gravy, right? My husband would be really into the vat of hot gravy, but I'm a no. And then having somebody ask me to do that and me get to say no, right? And then receive my no and us just kind of laugh about it and notice that it, like, the world keeps going, we're fine, all that stuff, right? So sometimes just like practicing getting some things out of your face, a few times so that it's like that first pancake, right? It's going to be kind of wonky before you start getting kind of used to how to pour that batter. All right. So your last myth, and we've mentioned this on the podcast before, but it bears repeating over and over again. So you're just going to keep hearing it. The myth of if they wanted to, they would do it on their own. And that is another thing. That's another myth that keeps us from asking for what we want. It is absolutely not true. People are different from us. The real truth is that people often want to care for us in a way that would feel good to us, but they may not know how because they are different from us. They have a different set of life experiences. They have different desires for how they are cared for. And all they can do, if we haven't told them what we need, all they can do is guess based on their own experience. And a lot of times people are afraid to guess wrong, so they don't do anything. So letting people know what you need, or what you want, even if they can't do it, that's okay. That's okay. You at least have had that conversation of this is what would feel good to me. And if you can't do it right now, maybe they can learn how to do it. Maybe they want to put that effort in to learn how to do it. Maybe they're willing to try, right? Okay, my dears. I want to just remind you that if you are in a libido mismatch couple, you definitely want to go hit up these like 1-hour clarity calls. They're free. You are going to feel so much better about your situation. And at the bare minimum, you are going to walk away with a bunch of questions answered for yourself. And also really normalizing, right? Like you're going to feel like, oh, this isn't weird. I don't have to like not think about it. I don't have to avoid it anymore. I can just own that this is a thing that we've got going on in our relationship. It is probably doesn't have to be as fraught as it feels. It doesn't have to be as hard as it feels. So pause the podcast, go to the show notes, click the link on the day you want to register and do it today. Don't let yourself forget. Don't let yourself put it off. And please, if you feel like if you've had conversations with friends where you know darn well that they have this problem, they have a libido mismatch relationship, or they are struggling with feeling like they don't have enough desire, or they have too much desire for their partner, or whatever is going on, you know those friends of yours, please share this episode with them because it's going to give them the invitation and they are going to get the resource that they need to feel better. And that is the way that this show reaches people and that we help more people is by you sharing it. So please feel free to share willy-nilly. I really appreciate it. And the people who need some of this help will really appreciate it. All right, my dears, I will see you here next week. I hope you have a good one. Bye. Hey, if you're curious about how you could have better sex and connections, go grab my free guide, Find Your Secret Turn-Ons. It's right on my website, www.laurajurgens.com, and the link is in the show notes. I'll see you here next time.